Well, good evening, everyone. And I guess I can't tell you which number this is for us. Maybe I can,
It is number 12.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Every once in a while, our voice of God's staff comes in and saves the day. Anyway, we have some interesting things to deal with tonight, folks. And it is a lot of astrology, I do admit, but then there are energies coming from a number of different levels, which basically end up forming our triangle networks. And so we have energies coming from cosmic levels, from zodiacal levels, which I suppose can count as cosmic, from solar systemic levels of our local 7 solar systems, of which ours is one, the heart center, and from within our solar system, and from upon our planet, the various centers and kingdoms, and all of this comes down into the etheric body where, well, even if we don't know what the sources of these great energies are, we can begin to access them in a kind of reflected manner. So just hang in there, and I think the potential to learn a lot is with us all. The Tibetan is considered at this time the most learned of the masters. And he has this amazing knowledge of zodiacal, ray, and creative hierarchy energies, more than any of the current masters of the wisdom. So he has imparted that to us, and if we are patient, we can begin to learn these things and learn of the wonderful intricacy of our local system. Finally, within the, well, this is as far as we can go really, the body of manifestation of the super cosmic logos that we call, fittingly, the one about whom naught may be said. So let's just have a little alignment for all of us. Yeah, I think it's a bit late for America, but in Europe, welcoming you all. So we are gathered on the plane of mind, receptive to the plane of higher mind, which really perceives relationships in a truer light. And it is our purpose to approach these subjects with a mind capable of being illumined by that which the soul knows, that which is known within the spiritual triad, that which the monad, with its vast experience about which, well, really nothing is said, that which the monad knows. And all of this because we are building the link between the top of our personality, we might say the mental unit, and the soul on the higher mental plane, and also between the mental unit and the spiritual triad. All of this is a gradual process to become true occultists of the positive kind. It takes a long time. We're not going to do this in one life, but we do have the Aquarian age, and it will be a time of great mental illumination, intuitive mental illumination, and finally, we are told, an era of brotherly love. That is what we look forward to during the last 720 years approximately of the um, equinoctial age of Aquarius. So we're on our way. We have a great teacher, the Tibetan teacher, and he will be one of the externalizing masters, and he will teach a great deal. Another 7 years before, as he said, his next treatise is coming forward, and he mentioned astrology particularly. And when you talk about astrology, you're talking about a third-ray science, and you're talking about the science of triangles. Our network of triangles ends with the three Buddhas of activity. At least that's one of its major anchor points, and they are on the third aspect of divinity within Shambhala. Of course, the second ray is blended too. So let's see what we can learn together, and we'll just sound an Om together so that we can confirm our intention of expanding our knowledge of the science of triangles. Excuse me. All right. Now, last time we spent quite a bit of time looking at the first ray. The first ray the zodiacal triangle through which the ray of will and power is transmitted. Now, one of the things that's really important to remember, and it's a very, very high thought, but within the head center of our local supercosmic logos, who is called the one about whom naught may be said. Well, what are we saying when we say that, We're just admitting that we really know just about nothing. That within his head center, which may very well be the hundreds and hundreds of Pleiades, there is another center that takes the place of what we call the heart in the head center. And our zodiac of constellations is that heart in the head center of the great supercosmic logos. Now that means a great deal because, as we know from our own structure, from which we can analogize, energy is sent forth from the 12 petals in our own heart in the head center, and it's sent forth to the various chakras that are found within our etheric system. And thus it is with the great Lord, in whom cosmic logoi, constellational logoi, are chakras. And within those constellational logoi, the solar logoi, like our sun, like Sirius, like Alpha and Beta Centauri, different stars, they are chakras. And within those chakras, let's say our sun, we have the different planets which serve as chakras within our solar logoic system. We call it our solar system. And if we went to any one of the planets, they too would have their systems of centers and chakras, and on it goes. So we just have to learn speculatively about the great system in which we are engaged, even though that system is tiny compared to, let's say, the galaxy, and how that eventually reaches us with certain qualities of energy which determine who we are in our personality expression and even in our soul expression. So it all starts from a very high level and makes its way down into what is closer to home and what we can actually think about. Now, if you look at love wisdom, the ray of love wisdom, and what is the origin really of these seven rays? Maybe in a certain respect, the seven major Pleiades, which are like the jewel box within that larger constellation. Each one of them has a particular ray, and of course, which star it may be that transmits what ray, that's very speculative. It's interesting, but speculative. So, love wisdom is going to come through three petals in this heart in the head center of the one about whom naught may be said. And notice that all of these constellations, which are transmitting the second ray of love wisdom, which is so important in our solar system because that's the soul ray of our solar logos, maybe even his ultimate monadic ray, and presently it is his personality ray. And that love wisdom ray is also the soul ray of our planetary logos. So all of these are on the cross of the hidden Christ. They're on the mutable cross, gradually through form and through much experiment and difficulty, the Christ consciousness does emerge. And all of these are on the fixed cross. We have the head of the cosmic Christ in Gemini, and we have the sign Virgo, which is about the birthing of the Christ consciousness in form, and we have Pisces, which is probably the sign ultimately, which is the Savior sign and closest to the Christ himself. And so the rulers normally considered are Mercury for both Gemini and Virgo, and Jupiter for Pisces. So slowly the Christ is emerging. Now, when you can look at triangles in different ways here. Obviously, this is a zodiacal triangle, but there are planetary triangles here as well, at least for some of them. Sometimes there's only two rulers, but in the case of Pisces, really, there are three rulers because Neptune is considered a special ruler of Pisces for humanity. So when I think of, you think of three great heroes in human development, and as it tells us in the Destiny of the Nations, where it gives us the rays of the Buddha, of Hercules, and the Christ, the Hercules is particularly connected with the sign Scorpio. And the Christ, the Buddha, particularly with Taurus, so those are opposing signs, and the Christ, particularly with Pisces. So I think that even though we're going into the age of the Aquarian Christ, he is most associated with the sign Pisces. Now, how it is for all of us in the beginning and for millions of years, when we're born in or under a certain sign, if your sun sign is a certain sign, you're born in that sign. If your rising sign is a certain sign, you're born under that sign. So for a long time, if we're born in Gemini, uh, we have Mercury as our ruler, and it allows us to begin to become aware of all the different relationships with which we are presented. But when we start to become, as hopefully people like ourselves are now, interested in the esoteric life and contacting the soul and wanting to live as the soul, then Venus begins to take over without necessarily leaving Mercury behind. That's the important thing. Even though we may be becoming disciples now, and Venus's influence, if we have strong Gemini, is important, we don't leave Mercury behind. It's still the planet most associated with Gemini. So Mercury and Venus are a brilliant pair together, and they represent in many ways the combination of the throat center and the ajna center. Venus is always ruling the ajna center, and Mercury takes over. And when you look at the throat center, Venus is ruling Taurus, which is aligned with the throat, and Mercury is a sign particularly connected with speech. So both Venus and Mercury are there. But when it comes to Gemini, we learn how to magnetically draw the pairs of opposites together. Magnetically, we draw soul and personality together in a love relationship, and magnetically, we draw the spiritual triad and the soul-infused personality together under Venus. So both of these, Mercury and Venus, are very important in building the Antakarana. So let's just say that in Gemini, the higher self, I recognize my other self, my lower self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. This is the Venus position. I am the growing and glowing one, and I look on at my lower self. So in Gemini, we really start to come in touch with our higher self, not just vacillating back and forth, but actually centering in our higher self. Now, most peculiarly and interestingly, Earth is the hierarchical ruler of Gemini, and it's because of Gemini that Earth can become a sacred planet. So all of the Christ-like force of Gemini, as I said, the head of the cosmic Christ, is released upon the Earth, where it can become truly a sacred planet, eventually, probably somewhere in the fifth round and around the Judgment Day. So here we have a triangle of very important planets. Now, if you're looking for what it might mean in your own system, let's look at it this way. One of the ways to look at it. Mercury can represent the intuition, Venus can represent the higher mind, and Earth the rest of the personality. From another perspective, Mercury represents the mental nature, Venus the astral nature, and Earth the etheric nature. So it's very important to look at this in your own astrological chart if there are connections between them. Now, when we come to Virgo, well, it is said at this time that more of the second ray is pouring through Virgo than through any other sign. And again, Mercury is the ordinary ruler. But now the amazing thing about that is that we're learning all about matter. You know how Virgo is a sign in which it is said, let matter reign. There's just so much to learn about this condition of energy we call matter, and Mercury, in relation to Virgo, is ideal for that type of learning about the ins and outs of material relationship. Actually, Mercury is not only the ruler of Virgo, but DK tells us that it is the planet which is exalted, has a very high function in Virgo. It's all related to the Christ consciousness and the emerging of the Christ consciousness. Now, interestingly, if we look at this other triangle, we see the moon is in the esoteric position, and yet we know the moon is not esoteric at all. It's a spent globe that was part of our Earth chain and has been replaced. And if you listen to Madame Blavatsky, she's going to tell you quite a story about the moon and how the moon is vampirizing the Earth. So it's like she said, it's a very unpleasant thing. It's like having a dead body in your backyard or something like that, with the same unpleasant effect. It is in the process of decaying. But basically, what the moon represents is all your lunar vehicles, which are based upon earlier forms of life that were cultivated on the moon and have to be reoriented now when it comes to life on this Earth chain. So usually the moon is blocking something, it's veiling something, it's preventing something from getting through. And what in Virgo, what it's blocking is the planet Vulcan and the planet Neptune. Now, Vulcan will rule the etheric physical nature, and in Virgo we have a strong emphasis upon that and all of the health issues, and also the cultivation of the Christ consciousness in the emotional body, which Neptune, of which Neptune is one of the representatives. So, if you're a disciple and you have a strong Virgo rising, or maybe your sun sign, something like that, you'll have to decide which of those two planets is most veiled by the moon. In other words, you might be the Vulcan type, you might be the Neptune type. In any case, the vibrations of those veiled planets has to come through when you purify your lunar nature. Now, when we go to the hierarchical side, we see Jupiter. And normally, in normal astrology, Jupiter is not well placed in Virgo because the expansiveness of Jupiter is curtailed by the detailed material consciousness of Virgo. But, as DK tells us, Jupiter opens the womb to the flowering of the Christ consciousness. So a very full kind of expansive Christ consciousness is offered by Jupiter for the initiates as the hierarchical ruler. Now, what you'll notice, maybe if I can go over here and just show you, if I can, all I've got to do is find it, right? Okay. So here it is, I think. Yeah, okay, here it is. And you'll notice that on the monadic plane, Virgo is the ruler, and the planet associated with it hierarchically is Jupiter. So there's a great deal of our monadic life which relates to the hierarchical ruler, Jupiter in Virgo. The entire plane is ruled by Virgo. It's sort of the seed of the spirit and the beginning of sevenfold form. Well, there's so much occultism in all this. And what I can tell you is that if you're very careful and you study carefully and correlatedly, that the jigsaw of all of these interrelationships will begin to show itself and begin to appear. So that's another triangle, Virgo, the moon, and Jupiter. Mercury, the moon, and Jupiter, or we could say Mercury, Neptune, and Jupiter, or we might even say, once we know where Vulcan is, which we don't yet, really, Mercury, Vulcan, and Jupiter. Finally, we come to the last of the transmitters of the second ray, and it's the triangle Jupiter, Pluto, and basically Pluto, or let's just say Neptune, as a special ruler. So when it comes to Jupiter, there is the idea that Jonah is swallowed by the whale, the whale of great size. It's the astral plane, it's matter, it's all of the phenomena, and the soul consciousness is buried. On the other hand, a little bit later along, there's a wonderful blessing with Jupiter in Pisces because goodwill, kindness, charity, doing the right thing by other people, following the golden rule, all of that is part of Jupiter in Pisces. When it comes to Pluto for disciples like ourselves, well, Pisces is the sign of the end. And basically, there's a condition in Pisces where we terminate things for better or for worse, and we cut loose from the previous cycle and prepare to enter into a whole new cycle. Now, some terrible things have happened with Jupiter, with Pluto and Pisces, and some of the people who were real, non-humanitarians, exterminators of their fellow human beings, they had this strong connection between Pluto and Pisces, or Pluto in the 12th house. They brought death and they brought karma. They brought some sort of finality. But for people like you and me, if we do it right, this Pluto in Pisces or in relation to the 12th house will bring us freedom, and we will be free of all the glamours and the illusions which hold us, and will be fresh and ready to start a new cycle. Pluto is also there for the hierarchical ruler, and basically it's a liberating position. It is death, but death in the sense that death brings life, new life. If we look at Neptune as the hierarchical ruler, then there is a great compassion. This is very much the Christ. Christ is the initiator of the first two initiations, and he has this great loving compassion for all humanity, which is Neptune in relation to Pisces. It is pralaya, it is dissolution, it's the dissolving of many old things, but it's also the great compassionate understanding. And do you know that these days we have Neptune in the sign Pisces, and will almost up to the year 2025. So do expect the dissolution of many things that we were holding on to in the Aquarian age. So, look, every one of these planetary positions has its own particular power in relation to the other two. So that when you find them in your horoscope, when you find them at the time of the full moon, you realize that the love wisdom energy can come through no matter what other kinds of things they're doing. If Pluto is death, can love wisdom come through death? Yes, it can. If Mercury is the intuition and mind, can love wisdom come through that? Yes, it can. So the great ray of love wisdom is working through these three signs, cultivating the Christ consciousness until there's a full blossoming of the Christ consciousness. But in all the other planetary activities, love wisdom can come through as well, even though the kind of thing that the various planets sponsor, they don't look like especially love wisdom type of activities. I think we can, let's look at active intelligence, at least the first three rays, and I'll just have to make a decision whether the group mind can, you can let me know, whether it's too much to absorb all this, but at least if we do the first three rays, you'll get the idea of how we can think. Now, notice here, this is very interesting, that for love wisdom, only signs upon the mutable cross were found. When we went back here to to the first ray, we had a mixture, didn't we? We had two cardinal signs and one fixed sign. Okay, all of that is significant, but when it comes to the growth of the Christ through form, we have only the mutable signs, the common cross. But now take a look here. Here's active intelligence. And we discover that only cardinal signs are found. And I'm recalling, the Tibetan says some very enigmatic things at times. You think about the cardinal cross, and you say everything that goes on there is just like super beyond, and you have to be a fifth degree initiate even to really understand the beginning of it. But he says that for average people, the cardinal cross is indicating the early initiation. The mutable cross is indicating discipleship and the appropriate initiations for that, maybe the second initiation. And the fixed cross is representing the initiate consciousness. So we have to reconcile that idea, even though normally the mutable cross is the cross of ordinary experience for millions of years. The fixed cross is the cross of the soul and of our growing discipleship. And then the cardinal cross takes us into the higher reaches of initiation. It all depends on our perspective. Well, anyway, we have Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. We don't have Aries, interestingly enough. So, Cancer rules matter, and so does active intelligence. So does the third ray. So all the things that pertain to the previous solar system, as a matter of fact, the constellation Cancer, as far as we're concerned, looks very weak now because we have moved on from the third aspect of divinity, and we're in a second aspect major solar system. So Cancer is very much the past, and active intelligence is the ray of history. It's looking backwards. Of all the nations for which Master DK gave the rays, not one of them he gave has a third ray soul. Not one. Now, that doesn't mean that there are no nations with third ray souls. Maybe they are. Many new nations have come into existence, but not one had a third ray soul. Seventh ray, sixth ray, fifth ray, fourth ray, second ray, first ray, but not third ray, because it's a ray in a way that's out of alignment, and it's causing a lot of difficulty for life within our local cosmos system. When it comes to Libra, the three aspects of the third ray, it's a sign very much connected with the third ray, and it even has a kind of a triangle as its symbol. The constellation looks like a triangle. Law, sex, and money. So law is the first aspect of the third ray, sex is the second aspect, and money is the third aspect of the active intelligence ray. Now, with Capricorn, it's very interesting. Three rays come through Capricorn: the first ray, the third ray, and the seventh ray. Seventh ray is most powerful, but for disciples, the third ray reaches them via Capricorn. In terms of Cancer, for the masses of men in the mass consciousness, the third ray, the ray of the personality and of all the lower lunar activity, reaches them through Cancer. So, you can look at Cancer and it's got the moon, Neptune, and Neptune. Really, it's really got Neptune, Neptune, and Neptune. That's the triangle. Neptune is the veiled planet here, and the moon just stands for a block, how the past blocks the new energies. But the Cancerian type gets more and more sensitive, and the unveiled Neptune begins to show itself, and pretty soon that Cancerian type is able to expand its consciousness into the wholeness. And of this Cancerian type, it is said, the whole is seen as one. Now, when it comes to Libra, Venus, the planet of beauty, is the ruler of the sign Libra, which is balance and proportion. So there's a special kind of attractiveness that's involved in the Venus rulership of Libra, and always there will be the desire to affiliate. But let's remember about Libra in the early days, It's said to be, and this is the Tibetan's quote, unbalanced fiery passion. And so you could see how an early type of Venus would work in that way. Now, later, for disciples, comes Uranus. And this is very important because right now we're going into all kinds of relationships in our society. Some of them are sanctioned by the ageless wisdom. Some of them are purely experimental and not sanctioned. But Uranus gives the freedom to experiment, and we go through that. So there's just some kind of unsurety about sex among humanity now. And basically, what's happening there is so many people are not satisfied with the sex of the body in which they were born, even though the solar angel probably chose that for a good reason. And we have a kind of amorphous experimental approach where you can will it the way you want it, and you don't have to be stopped by nature, even though nature may be in direct alignment with the will of the solar angel. So we will discover what experiments work and what don't. Uh, Master DK told us that in Libra, humanity would be working out the problem of sex, but disciples would be working in Scorpio with the domination by the soul of the personality. So disciples should be a little bit, beyond this kind of uncertainty. In any case, how do you relate to somebody? Is it on the basis of superficial attraction, or is it on the basis of your own deep individuality? Now, if it has to do with your individuality, Uranus is that archetype. And so you find people coming together on the basis of who they really are archetypally and not who they are conventionally. And then you get some pretty unusual combinations. I was just thinking about this political duo where the man is a very strong democratic theorist and publicist, and the woman is as Republican and as conservative as is possible to be, and somehow they manage, on the basis of who they are, to have a productive relationship, even though those two poles are at each other's throat when you look at the social interaction. Now, when it comes to Saturn, we really have the law. This is the highest placement for Saturn. It not only rules Libra hierarchically, it is also the exalted planet. And it makes this important decision about the mind. It rules supermind, and it takes us to spiritual will and the atmic plane. So the way the Tibetan has looked at this sometimes is Saturn represents the law, Venus represents sex, and Uranus represents money and all that can be created through money. Now, this is not rigid, all of them have a certain fluidity, but the triangle there is the third ray triangle representing the three sub aspects. And let's just say that when you have Saturn in Libra, abiding by the law which the purpose demands, as expressed by the divine plan, is the discipleship way to go. Now, when it comes to Capricorn, again, we have a dual rulership. Saturn is just the difficulty of incarnation at first. You're dealing with the material world in Capricorn. You are the earthbound soul, and you are subject to the heaviness of matter and its non-compliance with the higher energies. But when you are a disciple with Saturn and Capricorn, you really do, you're no longer subject to karma without thought. You take on your karma and you fulfill it. And Saturn in Capricorn gives us a connection, definite connection with the divine plan and your duty in line with the plan. So all of these hard things you have to fulfill under the third ray of matter in Capricorn because of Saturn. And it's really the school of hard knocks. It's, you're here in the frozen outer hard world which does not give in to the beauties of the inner world, but once we fulfill the balance, then through fulfillment of our karma, then we can access what's on top of the mountain. And what's on top of the mountain is the beauty and the light of the transfiguration, the third initiation, as given through Venus. It is the light on the mountain top, and it is the fifth ray, which rules the third initiation and the Ajna center, and it is the beginning of experience with light supernal. Okay, I mean, read Esoteric Astrology, you'll see the triangular network under here. Now, in a way, there's the triangle, Capricorn, Saturn, Venus. That's a one above and two on the same level. And, wherever you have Pisces, Jupiter, and Pluto, it's the same kind of thing. So sometimes you have triangles from 3 different levels, sometimes from 2 different levels, sometimes they're right across on the same level, and they have to be evaluated according to the levels on which they are found. Constellations, zodiacal constellations, are higher than planets. And sometimes you have a star thrown in there as well. So you have a constellation, a star, and a planet. So there's all kinds of triangles that are being formed, and our job is somehow to finally locate the kind of triangle in our etheric body which is really trying to be activated to a greater extent, a fuller extent, in this particular incarnation. That is our task, and then we can help it along. Now, I'll make a decision about how much more we can go into the other rays. Obviously, there's a lot to be said, but it would take quite a while, and the conference is coming up. I'm here in Phoenix because of the conference, and Tuija's on the airplane, and she arrives tomorrow, and well, we have to make a decision because now things get very intense in preparation for the conference. And of course, naturally, I want to invite you to be there in person if it's at all possible for you. And because I think a second ray conference is just what the world needs. We need the second ray now as never before. And if you can't make it in person, then we are doing the live streaming of the great majority of lectures and events and so forth, and you'll be able to participate meditatively in that way. Okay, well, I've probably talked long enough about this. There's only so much we can take, but it's a new language, everybody, and we have to talk the language of energy. We have to think in the language of energy because, after all, even apparently solid things are condensed, congealed energies. So the occultist always thinks in terms of energies, and if we want to understand how the points in a triangle work, we have to note the energy value of these points. Okay, now, all right. So what I'm going to do now is kind of draw a line here, if I can. Whoops. Let's see if I can do this. Yes. All right. So I'm going to say that this is the end of our reading for today. And this is number 12. And we're still on that. I think we're still on the same page, because when it comes to deciphering these qualities, we don't move very fast. So this is the Science of Triangles number 12. We're still on the same page, only the day has changed. And today is well, at least where I am, I'll just, it is the 5th, I'll say 6th of April, and 2018, and we'll begin with number 13 next time, and we'll have to see when actually that will be, okay? Because, as I say, the conference is a big deal for all of us. This is our 32nd consecutive annual conference. the Buddha and the Christ, radiant wisdom, all-pervading love. You can't get, I think, a more important subject than that at the present time. Now, if you've been thinking about what I've been talking about here, or about other related factors in occultism, this is your chance to make a statement, to ask a question. Like I say, I'm not too worried that we stick precisely to this subject. That's nice if we can do it, but there may be other questions about our studies, about esotericism, about occultism, which come up, and I'm happy to offer you my thought about it when I have a thought. So don't feel limited, and you may now proceed. And maybe Joe will help me if I miss somebody. And don't be shy, don't be shy. We all of us, frankly, we know practically nothing about this. We've been given such an advanced teaching. It's a teaching which, if it were not given to us, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years would be spent before we could find it on our own. So, we're very fortunate to have the great teacher, the Tibetan, offering this to us, and we have to use it well. Okay, do you have any thoughts, any questions about what we've been discussing, or about occultism or esotericism in general? And I'm certainly willing to give you my thought about it if you have something you'd like to discuss. And by the way, tomorrow morning, well, it's my morning, we go ahead with our Dissipation of Glamour webinar, and we're still, really working upon all of this distortion of the truth, which is so rampant in our global society at this time, mostly out of fear. So that'll be 5 p.m. GMT, and it'll be on April 6th. Okay, is there anybody who has a question, a comment, a thought that you would like to offer? Remember, this is coming right down into your own ray formula, into your own astrological makeup. It gets very personal, finally, after being very cosmic. Okay, anybody? I see that we have our European and our Australian contingent, and maybe a few people on the West Coast where it's not terribly late yet. If we go towards the East Coast and South America, everybody's in bed. Okay, any thoughts? Any questions about anything? Let's just say anything having to do with occultism. I don't care if you change the subject, because I know that this particular energy specific study can be pretty daunting. I know that. I just feel myself like I'm a beginner. I'm just beginning to learn these things, these great gods called the planets. They're everywhere present, and coming together, they make me who I am in this incarnation. They make you who you are. So we all have a lot to learn.
Let me pose a question for you, Michael, in relation to the active intelligence ray in Cancer with a triangle of Neptune, Neptune, and Neptune. Would you talk a little bit about that? Because generally when you think about a triangle, you think of a three.
Here's what we
It's
have
a
to
little
do.
bit
It's
of a
a funny
stretch.
triangle. It's kind of funny triangle, but now let's use the principles of level. And what we'll do is, although the planet itself is the same, the plane, the planes which it influences are not the same. And so the triangle will be between different functions of Neptune. Just the way in Leo we have Sun, Sun, Sun. I can give you Sun as the personality, that's legitimate. I can give you Sun as the soul, that's legitimate. I can give you Sun as the monad. And pretty much it's that way here too. Neptune rules the astral plane and all of its glamours and all of its will-o'-the-wisp illusions and all of the distortions and all the wish life, the fantasy, and all the rest of it. That's one level of ordinary Neptune, and it keeps you pretty much in the emotional life. And as we do know, the Cancerian individuals are quite, they have quite an emotional capacity, okay? But the next step, as you begin to be a disciple, the intuition begins to wake up. So within your causal body, the love petals, there's one synthesis petal, and finally, if we're building the Antakarana, the Buddhic plane comes into focus. So now there's that necessary antichoronic connection between the Buddhic plane and its intuition and the astral plane, which provides the symbols eventually, which can evoke the intuition. So, we're not yet, I don't think any of us, into the fully unveiled Neptune. Maybe if we stand before the Christ 2 times, the Christ who is Neptune, maybe we will have that experience of understanding something that Neptune, and here's Blavatsky again, listen to this, Neptune is the god of reasoning. Now you would just think just the opposite, that Mercury is the god of reasoning, and in a way it is. And Neptune is just everything that distorts reason and doesn't allow you to be logical. But what it really means is Neptune is the god of pure reason on the Buddhic plane. So there's a lot of Neptune, a lot of Jupiter, a lot of Mercury on the Buddhic plane, and now we're talking about in the life of the disciple. Now let's go further. When we come to the monadic plane, because we've gone from 6 to 4, and now we're going to jump to 2, Neptune is there again. I leave my father's home, says Pisces, on the monadic plane, and turning back I save. So the whole context of the salvational journey is ruled by Neptune as a ruler of the monadic plane along with Jupiter. It's the hierarchical ruler, a special ruler of Pisces, and we all know that Pisces has a special connection with the monad because of its pilgrimage. So basically the triangle is all about monad, soul, personality, or monad, the intuitional level, and the astral level, and how they can be, at a certain point, all lined up in such a way that a clear line of energy comes from that very expansive, boundary-destroying monad, which Neptune represents. See, the thing about the monad in terms of Neptune is that there are no boundaries because there is such complete identification. So, you don't have a wall that keeps you from being the other. You've slipped behind the apparent wall and you are the other. Now, we could take it further and beyond this system of initiation, and we would find that Neptune also rules the cosmic astral plane. But, the Christ is just getting used to that right now, and Master DK says he hasn't been there. So, that's beyond our practical skill. So even though the 3 planets are the same, the qualities and the qualities they give and the planes they represent are different, and you can make a triangle out of that. Okay, I hope that gives a little bit of an idea. Now, it also maybe gave everyone else a little time to see whether there's a question or a thought. I know this is daunting material, and it's going to get easier after we leave this particular chart. But what you got to do is realize that there are a lot of specific and very different energies out there, and they're all interacting with each other. Everything is related to everything else. And, in any integrated cosmic system, there's no one point that does not reach every other point. Sometimes it's in threes and nines, and it's got a specific kind of mathematics to it. But the basic thing is, just think of it, and that's the Neptunian type of relation. Everything is related to everything else. And finally, the amazing thought of identification that everything is everything else. Now, I know that's a big jump. It takes us back to the Vedantists. It takes us back to India and its great first ray soul, and back to the sign Aries, which rules that, you know. Who knows what the monadic ray of India is? It's got one, of course. But it takes us back to the great factor of identification. Thou art that, and naught is but me. Okay, are you sufficiently daunted? I am. All right, is there anything else? Don't hold back. Any question, any thought is sufficient. But you got to use your memory, and the third ray is the Lord of memory. And just like you know all the letters of your alphabet and their different combinations into words and sentences, thus it is in the language of energy. So these things have to be memorized before you can begin to work by heart with them and begin to get the intuitions that occur when light flashes forth between any two or three apparently unrelated factors, but they're really related, and the light reveals the relationship. So we're studying with Master DK here. He's got that, he's got something that goes along with Gemini and Virgo in connection with the second ray, and it's called by the strange name, and I know some of you have heard this name before, meticulous entirety. Meticulous entirety, allowing you to sense the detail of the whole, of the sensed whole, and put it all together in one integrated wholeness.
I unmuted Karen because her hand is up.
Yeah, I have a
Karen,
question.
hi.
Okay. Hi. I'm thinking about a statement that Dwayne Carpenter made in his webinar, the last webinar, and he said that a triangle is a vortex of, I think he said it was a vortex of energy in the early stage of development. And this is from, I think, from, maybe it's from HPB, I'm not sure, but I'm interested in what you think about that, because when I thought about that in terms of, just visualizing, because he puts these things in motion, which is so helpful.
He's so good at that. Yeah, he's so good at that.
Well, and it was a great visual in terms of doing triangle work, instead of doing, the points of light from point to point, it gives me a totally different version. I mean, it's like, what this made me think of is like a chakra.
Yes. Dwayne has so much to offer along that line, and his models and his, sort of motion pictures, I don't know what to call them, they add an entirely new dimension. And yes, once the circulation between the points reaches a certain frequency, a certain rapidity, it is going to become a vortex. And an idea of that is right here. This is the dispelling radiance in esoteric healing. You have to have the head center, the adjunct center, and the alta major center, all related. It's also the signal of one who can really take the third degree. And it's the circulation in the triangle and its rapidity which makes it all into one thing. As a matter of fact, if you think about the Trinity, how, over which people have fought for, centuries, it's the three in one. And the three do become the one through this vorticular type of eventuality, through the circulation of the energy. So, Dwayne is the one to present how it might look, but let's just say we need more and more circulation, rapid circulation between the isolated points. Now, that's an eventuality. At first, it's not that way. There's a lot of struggle between any two of the points. Sometimes the energy rises, sometimes it falls back. And DK has given that to us. He's shown us how Shambhala, how hierarchy and humanity. I wonder if I can, it makes me want to go looking, but you've seen that triangle thing before, I guess. Let's just see if I can find this, because it's so interesting. Unfortunately, I've got too many documents, which I'm really willing to give people and share with them. Let's see. For some reason, I'm not... Okay, AAB extracts. Let's just see if I can find that. And but you'll see exactly what I mean if I can find it. Triangle. Oh, there's so many. Oh, there's so many. Later, it will be easy to locate, and right now, it's going to be a great.
I see chakras, triangles with chakras there.
There, no, it's Shambhala. It's Shambhala, and it's hierarchy. Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity, and it's triangles. And unfortunately, I've lost my AAB diagrams, and I don't want to take time. It's somewhere on this computer, but suffice it to say, the circulation between these centers is not complete, and you can see this, that there's a struggle between the centers, and only once the circulation is complete do we have the possibility of what Dwayne is talking about. That's when it really is going to work. Well, okay. Yes. Okay. Okay, I found it. Notice this is how it is, the past, the present, and look at the future. Now notice that you got a lot of one-way streets here, okay? And partial approaches. Look at the present. Hierarchy has not fully approached Shambhala. Humanity has not fully approached hierarchy, at least the return is not complete. Shambhala is approaching humanity, but the return is not complete. Now look at the future. That represents the vortex that Dwayne is talking about. It's a two-way street. Energies are coming and going. They're rising, they're falling, they're rising, they're falling. And that is the kind of triangle, because its relationships are complete, that is ripe to become a true vortex. I hope that that's somewhat clear.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
It's somewhere. This particular, oh my goodness, I can't even tell you what page it's on. But I assure you, it's on a page. Okay. Oh, here's another one. Here's a Shambhala. Here we go. Let's see if I can find that. This is all going back years and years. Okay. I don't have the page. Okay. I just don't have the page. But you can find it, somehow. And as you see, there's been a progression from the past through the present to the future. And only in the future is the true and complete vortex possible. Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, any other thoughts, friends? Any other thoughts that you'd like to offer, or questions that you'd like to offer? I know it takes a certain amount of either foolishness or bravery, to just kind of jump in and say, okay, I don't care how funny this question may seem, but I've got this question about the teaching, and believe me, what I was just saying, it's possible to relate anything to anything else. This is the principle behind it all. Mercury can do that. And in any integrated cosmic system, reaching a certain point of development, everything is related to everything else. So there is no irrelevant question, or statement for that matter. Ah, and Veronica. Okay, if the moon is a relic, it's an incomplete chakra. It's a chakra that basically the development of it was curtailed because of improper development out of line with the plan. If it blocks energy, what happens at the time of the full moon? Okay, it's the solar energy which is released, so they should almost be called full sun festivals. The moon is, as it were, out of the way, and the sun has a straight shot to the earth with the particular energy which it is transmitting, which has to do with the signs of the zodiac. So what happens at the time of the full moon? It is the time when it is most powerful on humanity. Not well, there is some latent retrogressive lunar madness related, chaos related energy of the moon, but that only affects certain lunar types of people. The advancing person is affected by the energy of the sun. A full sun festival, it should be called. So, but that is the time when we meditate and have contact with the masters. So it's a solar process, and a solar process with the negativity of the moon as far away from that which represents the soul and the monad as possible, namely on the other side. There is some madness and all of that kind of happens. They keep record of it in the asylums and whatnot. People get a little crazy, but that's because those are people who particularly had this kind of um, relationship to the lunar process, and probably their origin is on the moon chain as well. So the basic thing is the solar energy, which impacts us with for instance, we just had Easter, right? So why aren't we making a big deal about the Libra moon? Well, the important thing is the Aries, the sign of resurrection, in which the sun is found in the tropical zodiac. And so esoterically, it's the sun transmitting Aries energy and not the moon in Libra that is of importance. So basically, the misnomer, it's a misnomer to say it's a full moon festival. It is, in terms of the phenomena, but we should really call it a full sun festival, with the major energy being that which the sun is transmitting according to the signs of the zodiac, which receive the associated constellational energy. I hope that is clear. The moon really doesn't have much to do with it, except it's out of the way. And one day, now, DK says this very interesting thing. He says, as the rounds elapse, whether they're the chain rounds or the big scheme rounds, the moon is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller until it disintegrates and is no more. And humanity on Earth and all the various kingdoms will then be free of its nefarious influence, and that will be progressive. Okay. But of course, the moon also veils other planets, and those other planets are important. And as soon as we clean, clarify, purify, and make translucent and transparent the atoms of our vehicles, then the other planets can really get through, and they're no longer blocked by the ordinary lunar lords. As a matter of fact, when a Maya Virupa is made, and that's a will-created body, that a fourth degree initiate, fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever, they can make these Maya Virupas through the power of Kriya Shakti, which is Virgo and Jupiter together on the monadic plane. Interestingly enough, when those are made, you have lower vehicles, but you don't have any lunar lords. No more of those lesser lives, which are basically involutionary and working against the coming through of the higher energies. So I hope that, a little bit clear. It's a full sun festival. Okay, anybody else? Right. Okay. All right. Well, then let's, we'll let you know now. As I say, we're heading into that time when the conference is upon us, a very important conference about love and wisdom, or love wisdom. Very important. So if you're not there in person, please do follow the streaming of the conference, and you can do that by going to the website, and there's information there about how you can sign up for the streaming, and we're going to do our best to make sure it comes through in good quality. You just have to keep going. That's all. Or as they said in the arcane school, probably going back to Alice Bailey's days, you have to keep on keeping on. You have to keep on keeping on, regardless of the apparent results that may come to you. We look for rewards in terms of results, but the true disciple keeps going if he or she knows that what they're doing is right, even if the results don't appear in a way that they can notice. DK often says, we notice the results. We see it on the inner planes. You don't notice it. You just keep going. And that's what we all have
Anne's hand went
to
up,
do.
so I unmuted her.
Someone else has
Anne's hand went up.
and Veronica. Okay.
Hello, are you listening to me? Good
Hi.
morning.
Hi, and Veronica.
Hello.
Hi.
I have some more questions I would like to ask. I was reading in the Dina Disciples book, the number 1, about the disciple in the aura of the master. And he was saying about these, the way the energies come down. From the permanent Buddhic atoms to the love petals, and then so on, going down. And I wanted to ask. It starts from the Buddhic permanent atom. That this energy comes from a higher source. It comes from, because he says in some place that the master has contact with the heart center of God. Now, what does he mean by saying the heart center of God? Does he mean the heart center of our planetary logos or our solar logos?
I think
where are these permanent atoms?
Well, it's got to be the hierarchy, and it's got to be the heart center of Sanat Kumara, who is a projection of the planetary logos, and it has to be the hierarchy as a whole, considered as that heart center, and the Christ as both the heart and head of the hierarchy. It's not the solar logos. It's too far. It's too much. A solar angel that has been to Sirius already and has undergone tremendous training is a member of the council within the sun, or the council within the solar logos. That's too much for a human being. Not even the Christ is there yet. These permanent atoms that we're talking about are where the hierarchy is focused, and that's the realm of the spiritual triad. But, there's a whole thing about those permanent atoms. The energy is coming from the monad, and the monad is will, love, wisdom, and activity, intelligence. And the monad itself, we are told in a very fleeting reference in Initiation Human and Solar, has its home within the sun. So basically, as monads, we are all within the solar logos, who sponsors all of these energies, especially the great Buddhic energy, the great indigo ray, the great love wisdom energy, which has a direct connection to the soul or heart center of our planetary logos. So I don't think we have to go looking very far for other types of permanent atoms. I think there's a chart on page, is it 844? That might be. I don't know if I'm correct, but I'm going to try to take a look here. Let's see. Treatise on Cosmic Fire. Yeah. Okay, let's see what happens on 844. Oh, this I have to send back before I can do anything. And a Treatise on Cosmic Fire. Let's just take a look. Okay. Well, yes, this is an important chart, but it's not the one I'm looking for. These are the higher orders of lives, but somewhere, maybe around page 600 or something like that, is a list of beings and where they have, how many permanent atoms they have. Now let's see, and where they are located. 5 permanent atoms. Let's just see if anything there will come up. Yes, maybe here. Maybe here. The egoic ray. Okay, maybe not. Anyway, it tells you about some of these beings. And here it is. All right, here we go. So if you want to check out categories of beings and how many permanent atoms they have and where they may be located, this is the one to check out. Now, no doubt, this is on page what? Let's view it and hidden, and it's on page of Cosmic Fire, something 532, 533. So this is the place to look for the advanced beings and their permanent atoms. Now, there's no question in my mind that there are types of permanent atoms on the cosmic astral plane, on the cosmic mental plane. About that, he says nothing. As a matter of fact, if you look at the chart over here, he basically, let's see if I can, okay, maybe it's not going to work for me. I want to, anyway, suffice it to say that this one's not going to lead where I want to go. This one would lead where I want to go, but it's, okay, it's not going to do it. You see, basically what I'm saying is you see that even on the higher planes and subplanes of our own cosmic physical plane, he doesn't always draw the permanent atoms, but he gives a big hint. And this hint is so good that I've got to find a way to get there, okay? Somehow. I'm going to call this, what am I going to call this? Diagrams. Okay, let's see if I can. A, B diagrams. Oh, good. That's exactly where it belongs. Okay, copy this, and I'm going to go back over to here and paste. All right. Okay, now I've found what's missing. And he says something very interesting. Excuse the digression. I'm going to return to what I always go to, and that's this particular chart. And here we are. Now, basically, he tells us he doesn't show us anything on these subplanes. He only shows us permanent atoms on the lower planes, and yet he says 35 vortices of force make a master. 35 vortices of force. And what that means is that there are vortices of force on the Buddhic plane, vortices of force on the atomic plane, and they're not described. They are chakras, okay? Now, 42 vortices of force make a Chohan. 49 vortices of force make a Chohan of the 7th degree. And notice, maybe it's none of our business yet, he leaves them blank. So it is possible to find all these permanent atoms on different levels, but we're not yet given to know what they are or exactly where they are. But I would say work out of an analogy that the head the heart, and the throat center are on the higher three of any plane, the subplanes, high three subplanes, and the other chakras are on the fourth subplane. And then we have at least an idea, at least a suggestion. So look, we're into things that are, maybe he'll reveal more, coming up. It may be so. But at the moment, no. So we just have to speculate about it. Okay, so that was one question. What else?
Okay. The second question is something that I was thinking about the soul and its petals. You were saying in one of your webinars that the three last petals, the petals of will, have a different
Right.
way of turning.
Turning, yeah.
And when they happen, it is the time when the vortex becomes, it breaks and it stops. The solar angel is no more. Is that true? Is that the right way I'm thinking?
The different way of turning is before the solar angel is no more. The different way of turning is like the mental petals begin to turn in a direction that is different from the lower two, or the synthesis petals themselves, which are Buddhic in nature, begin to turn in a different direction than the lower nine. Now, I'm not exactly sure how it is, but let's just say that as long as there are petals, there's a solar angel. When the Buddhic energy enters the causal body and the monadic energy enters the jewel in the lotus, and the lower three atomic triangle, the mental unit, astral permanent atom, mental permanent atom, begin their friction, all of that destroys the causal body, and then the solar angel, rather than being no more, simply returns to the heart of the sun or to the central spiritual the sun, depending upon the grade of solar angel that it is. And then you have to take over the functions of what the solar angel did, because now you are focused on the Buddhic plane, where notice this, if we go back to a certain chart, here is our chart, and we see solar angels are on the Buddhic plane. This is an important chart, and it's a collection of different items, and it gives you the idea that once you are on the Buddhic plane, which you are after the fourth initiation, you can begin to take over some of the functions that the solar angel was mediating for you. And that's because the solar angel, as the angel of the presence, has introduced you to the powers of your own monad, so you can begin to function like your own solar angel. Okay, I'm hearing a lot of extra sound from somewhere. I'm not sure where.
Is it from me? I'm quiet here. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's something. It was a background issue. It's okay, Anne. Okay, anything else?
Well, my last question is there a stipulation for each planet on each plane, what it does on each plane? As you said, we might have Pluto, but
Yes.
the meaning of each plane, it gives a different meaning on each plane. Is there a stipulation that says Pluto on the Buddhic plane?
I'll give you an example. Okay, let's look at Saturn. It rules dense matter. It rules the concrete mind. It rules on the atmic plane spiritual will, and it is also the permanent atom for the entire cosmic physical plane, presenting the law for all things on the cosmic physical plane. Okay? Now, I'm just using this chart 7, 5, 3, 1. Let's look at Neptune. Neptune is a ruler of the astral plane, and it gives us all of the, desire, wishes, illusion, confusion, all those things. On the fourth plane, it introduces pure reason and the intuition, and on the second plane, it introduces identification, a complete identification such as the Christ has. And it goes on to the cosmic um, cosmic astral plane, where it is as important to the cosmic astral plane as Saturn is to the whole cosmic physical plane. So basically, what you have to do is you have to study the different qualities of each planet, low and high, and correlate them yourself to the various kinds of things which happen on the different planes. Saturn is easy to do, Neptune is easy to do, and probably we could do Uranus as well in connection with the logoic plane, the higher mental plane, the etheric plane. We could find factors which are coming from those planets which correlate with the usual activities of the different planes and subplanes. That's getting, pretty detailed, but we can do something with that, I think, and make it clearer to ourselves. Obviously, if I'm an average person, I'm responding to Uranus, maybe I'm going to get in an accident or break my ankle or something, who knows. If I'm a disciple, I may reject the conventional way of doing things and settle on a whole new paradigm of understanding. If I'm an initiate, then the divine archetype will appear to me, and I will know more and more of God's purpose. And that's all coming through the planet Uranus. So basically what you got to do is take every planet and learn the high and the low of it, how it affects humanity embodied in the form at various levels of immersion. Now, all of us are immersed in form to a certain extent. How deeply are we immersed? If we're not so immersed and we're making our way free, these great gods, these great planets will mean something different to us than if we are an earthbound soul in the early days of our experience. Okay. Thank you, Anne.
Well, thank you. That was really nice, and it's a lot for me to think and study about. I don't have any more questions. I just have some questions which I think that later on you will explain to us about the schemes and the.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what the word
Oh yeah.
is. The analysis.
There's a lot of things about the planetary schemes that
about the planetary schemes. I seem to struggle about them, and I can't understand them very much. So I believe in later webinars we will be talking about this.
It's like doing a whole course in cosmic fire or something. We would like work in cosmic fire. Let's see if there are these wonderful diagrams, but there's so much hidden within the geometry of those diagrams that all I can do is point out the differences, where there are squares, where there are triangles, where there are pentagrams, and I cannot give you the whole story on that because I myself don't know it. But I do notice those things, and they are given by the Tibetan in a way that he wants us to notice. And eventually, here's what I'd say. In the new esoteric schools, which are coming up, they're coming up, I would say that these intricacies will be studied. Okay? Now, here, take a look at this. Here are, let's say, why is this a diamond? Why is this a square? Why does this inner triangle actually touch one of the other chains? Why here does it not touch? Why is this one Venus, another diamond? You see? So all of those little differences, they make a big difference. And I'm not sure that I can find everything I want to look at here. Maybe not. But I can find here. Look at this. Why squares? Why a hexagon? Why a pentagram for Venus? Well, that's pretty obvious. Why this very interesting kind of figure, a double triangle for Mercury? Why this unusual series of triangles for Mars? All of that is the hidden teaching that's given in the diagrams, and we can speculate about it, and it would take us into an exercise of the intuition and the use of whatever knowledge we have. So there's a lot ahead if we want to stick with it. Okay, Anne, thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay, friends, I hope you can hear me. Test, test. Yes, you can.
Yes, we did hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. Oh my God, we can hear you. Okay. All right. I think now let's have a little meditation. Just a little meditation. And we'll try to, make it practical, of course. So here we are. We are all of us the monad in extension. We're on our pilgrimage. We have passed through the experience of involution and we've made the turn. We do have some involutionary lives associated with us, okay. But we, as the projection of the monad, we've made the turn. And we are rising through the purification of the personality and the integration of the personality and the infusion by the soul of the personality and gradually the infusion of the soul-infused personality by the triad. We're not yet, maybe, that's not a full thing, and the monadic energy is not fully reaching us as it is on its own plane. But okay, we're in process. And we are traveling through many, many different self-perceptions. In a way, everything that you register is a self-perception by some entity or other. Everything is a thought in the mind of our planetary logos, we might say, and those thoughts are really self-perceptions. So we're in a great thought form here, and we are also creators within that thought form. Now, one of our tasks is to turn the etheric body of squares on our planet and our own etheric body into an etheric body of triangles by esoterically bisecting the square. And then the etheric body, our own and the extended etheric body of our planet, will be more and more susceptible to its own soul. The triangle carries the soul. The square carries the energy of personality. So this work, says the Tibetan, must go on to perceive all the different entities, whether on the same level or different levels, triangularly related, etherically especially. We have to begin to have etheric triangular perception, and to think that we are a converting, transforming center of energy contributing to the growth of triangular interaction. So whether it's our own little group of triangles, even if it's just one or however many, we send our goodwill and heart energy out to all our co-participants in our own little network, goodwill and light, and we see the linking. It's always going on, the linking is going on, until every little network, our own and those of others, are connected with the great growing triangles network, which is contributing to the sacredness of our planet, the becoming sacred of our planet. So every day, let's give our network some thought, send out some goodwill, send out some light, and eventually, when we know what it means, the will to good will be transmitted. And we'll get the sense that we are always within the great etheric body of our planet and even of our solar system and even eventually of space itself. We're in this triangulating etheric network. And we have a responsibility to keep the triangles coming, keep them vivified, keep them transmitting the beneficent energies of goodwill, which is love in action, and light. We're building all the time. And we're contributing to the becoming sacred of our planet. So let's sound an Om to confirm that process in which we are engaged. And we'll close our work tonight, well, or in the day, whatever it is for you, with the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, everybody, thank you for being here, and we do our glamour meditation in another 10 hours or so. It's a 5 p.m. schedule, GMT, and we'll continue to try to rid the astral plane of its various miasmas. At least we'll make our contribution. So thank you, and this will be posted on Makara before long, and tell your friends about our activities. Pretty soon, I think we'll also have a 5 p.m. time with the science of triangles. Be a little harder than, I guess, for people in Australia and New Zealand, a little easier on Americas. We have to do some alternating, I think, so that people can have it more accessible rather than 3 o'clock in the morning in New York right now. Okay, all the best. Lots of love. We'll see you, and we'll let you know our schedule as the conference approaches. And please do think of coming to the conference, yes, or of joining the live streaming of the conference activities. Either way, we call upon your participation. We seek to evoke it. Okay, we'll see you now, and all the best to you.